keep ourselves grounded, hopefully, in the midst of these uncertain times, which feel even more uncertain right now. Um, but here we are on the third day of Tishrei, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. These 10 days of repentance, of reflection, are to be the holiest times of the year. And so I decided this week not to have a guest, but just to share a few prayers, to share a few meditations and some things that I find particularly meaningful, powerful, and reflective as helping me. A couple things, though, I'll just put a side note. I know I may be losing some viewers this morning because BTS is going live on Tiny Desk Concerts, NPR's Tiny Desk Concerts at 9 a.m. this morning concurrently. They didn't check with me to see if there'd be any conflict. Fortunately, they're both recorded, so you can watch either at a later time. Okay. In addition, I've been doing something for the past few years called 10 Qs, and you can I'll drop the link in the YouTube and the Facebook chat underneath the posting of this afterwards. And 10 Qs, it's not too late to do it, but what it does is every day it sends you a question in these 10 days of repentance that you reflect upon. It gets locked and you answer it, you write about it, and it gets locked away in the vault. And a year from now, next year, 354 and a half days from now, next year's high holidays, 10 days of repentance, you will find your answers there waiting for you. And then you answer a question as well. And it is really incredible to look at your perspective. We think we know where we were a year ago, but when you see what you've actually written a year ago and how you answered certain questions, like today's question was an event in this past year that has most impacted yourself and your identity, right? And so there are personal reflections. Sometimes they're things you reflect on in our world, in our lives, and humanity, and it's really powerful to look back on that and see what you've done. So I recommend that as a way. I think this entire time, and for us rabbis, we get overwhelmed with all the things that are going on, the work we're doing right now, and sometimes forget to take this time for ourselves too. And I shared one of these prayers, one of these readings yesterday during Tashlich with some of our congregants, and I found it to really keep me thinking about what I want to be doing and myself and my internal, struggles as well, and how we're supposed to be looking at that in this time and preparing for Yom Kippur. So I wanted to share this first poem I know by James Conlon. And this was read, I read this as well as part of the Shofar Service on Rosh Hashanah. And if you recall, the Shofar Service has three different parts. The first as of Malchuyot, of God's sovereignty, and the idea of the creation of our world, right? And culminating with the idea of having hope in our world, of the revelation that we experience as well as a people, starting with obviously the redemption and revelation of freedom and receiving Torah and law, to our idea of hope in our world getting better. So this was a poem that I shared beforehand as well. And a shout out to Nicole Figueroa in finding this poem after hearing it and reposting it and mentioning this as well. I'm glad that you heard it and it resonated with you too. I know that poverty must cease. I know this through the brokenness and conflict in my heart. I know that protest is my most prophetic act, and that the world is longing for a new soul, a new healing moment. I know that when we awaken to our origins and become truly human, we bring hope to the children and to the earth. I feel called today to bring the people together to break the bread and tell the story. I feel called today to be a mystic in action, aligned to the dynamics of the universe. I feel called today to give my gift, to listen to the heartbeat of the broken world, to heal the fragmented people and planet. I feel called today to celebrate the wonder of creation and respond to sacredness and the challenges of life. I feel called today to participate in the work of my time, to fall in love, to feel at home. I feel called today to be inflamed with enduring hope, to be at one with the universe, to be touched by God, I feel called today to compose a new paragraph for life. For me, the high holidays are that reminder that we can compose that new paragraph in life. That, as I said in my sermon, that we are given the privilege not just to refresh our perspective, our lives, ourselves, but also to do this again in the idea of how we can renew ourselves and how we can better ourselves and our connections to our world and one another. So this poem was from the Mishkan HaNefesh, the new Machzor for the high holidays that we'll be using in Temple Shir Shalom in the future. You know, as Rabbi Schwartz mentioned during the holidays, that was our plan this year, and we were sort of gearing up for it. But 6 months ago, when the pandemic fell upon us, we realized it wasn't the time to make such a major shift within our congregation, that we wanted to go with that which we were familiar with, the gates of repentance. And the transition will be a little too challenging at this time. So, God willing, it will be something we introduce next year, and everyone will have these in their hands. They're pretty thick prayer books in the sense that they have a lot of material in them. And so we'll have to really redact what we are able to do with them, but it also gives you the perspective and opportunity to sit during services and listen to the prayers and go reading on your own. Like, I love the teaching, and think of this during the holidays as well. Rabbi Ed Feinstein taught this about, he's a rabbi in California, Valley Beth Shalom, conservative rabbi who's been someone who teachings have always found powerful. And he said that it's like when you go into an art museum and you walk around and gaze at different artwork and find some pieces really intriguing, meaningful, powerful, drawing you in, and you stare at them forever, it seems, and others do nothing for you. The same thing as our prayer book, right? That each of us connects with it differently and finds different prayers that resonate at this time or today or last year or whatever, and that's okay. And you can flip through them and you can find other things. And I love this new prayer book, just like our old prayer book has lots of meditations in there. These have new readings in there as well of contemporary writers, poets, essayists that really are powerful. So one is from Rabbi Jan Urbach, someone who's a contemporary of mine, and these words here, I think, in getting ready for Yom Kippur, have great import. Praying is more than merely reciting words. It's about encountering aspects of ourselves we rarely, if ever, see. Shifting our perspective, seeing all things anew, awakening our spirits and sense of wonder. Prayer is about connection with ourselves, with a community of other seekers, with someone or something beyond ourselves. On the high holidays in particular, our prayer has some additional goals. We're trying to remove our protective armor, ego, self-deception, rationalization, external, internal makeup, posturing, anything that keeps us from seeing ourselves as we really are. We're trying to experience both our vulnerability and the true source of our strength. Perhaps most importantly, we're trying to get past our self-judgment and locate a place of gentleness and tenderness. That place where we feel deeply loved and valued, where we feel most loving of others, even if just for a moment. This is from the Yom Kippur Machzor, and I found incredibly touching and powerful, trying to experience both our vulnerability and our true source of our strength. It reminded me of the Midrash that says that we're to carry two notes, one note in each pocket at all times, right? And that we reach for them at different times in our lives. One that says, the world was created for me alone, and the other note that says, I am but dust and ashes. That sense of humility and the sense of strength and pride that we feel simultaneously as well, and how important that is for us. So, you know, that balance in Judaism is really that lifts us up and reminds us that we have so much potential, so much power, so much strength, so much that we can do in the midst of times when we feel like we have no power and we can't do anything. We feel like the world is falling upon us. And the other part where we get a little too haughty, a little too proud, that we get knocked down and reminded that, we're just one of so many, and we can be blown away easily. I think the idea is that we need that constant balance to not get too proud, but also remember that each of us has incredible power. And it's important for us to acknowledge in Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing this past few days, the power of one individual. So many things I think in our world, I believe we take for granted, that we just assume have always been there. People in my generation, especially, right, and younger, and how the ideas that she brought to light and what she made happen, and the strength she gave to women in our country, and how important that is for things, again, that we assume have always been. That a woman couldn't open up her own bank account or sign a loan or get a credit card without a husband's signature. How absurd is that when we think about it? But she was one who brought these things to light and gave light to the ridiculousness of them and how they're so disproportionate in the inequality of them. And so with that in mind, I really give thanks for her spirit and her strength and her wisdom that gave light into our world. And we will miss that greatly. So as we prepare for Yom Kippur, hopefully you are a part of our services, or you enjoyed our services on Rosh Hashanah. And as I said then, you notice they were briefer than our normal in-person services. We try to do the best to connect with people and to make the prayers relate to us in these times, and engaging as much as possible when we can't be personally together, and we miss that. That being the case, we also realize that we have more to say. And so if you want, those opportunities will continue after the formal services. So 8 p.m. is Kol Nidre services. 10:30 a.m. is Yom Kippur morning services. After that service, we go into our extended tish with us three rabbis, Rabbi Schwartz, and myself, in an in-depth discussion and fielding your questions then too. After about an hour and a half of that, we'll have 3 breakout rooms that will take place. And you can stay with 2 of us rabbis as one of us is engaging. And those breakout rooms will be with each of us rabbis at half an hour increments at 12:30, at 1, and 1:30. And what happens during those times will be, and the sermon continues. All the things that we didn't talk about in our sermon that we were thinking about talking about, or that we edited out of our sermon. Like I had a whole section of my sermon this past week about tribalism, and how when I was talking about empathy, that sometimes when we are so aware of our own tribe and we gain strength in that and take pride in that, it's a good thing. And we show empathy the most to those in our tribe, and that's why it's promoted things like our federation and Jewish Family Services and Hebrew Free Loan and Yad Ezra, things that help Jews, help the Jewish community, and that's a real priority for us. At the same time, the paradox of empathy is that sometimes we neglect those outside of our tribe, right? And what does that mean? And Judaism is always saying we shouldn't be doing that. Remember to welcome the stranger who resides among you, to love the stranger as yourself. So obviously we shouldn't be doing, we should be remembering that as well. And then the other part of tribalism is that sometimes it blinds us to the needs of others as well. So our Yom Kippur services, there's also the 9:30 a.m. family service as well. And then in the afternoon, after the sermon continues, there's 2 p.m. meditation. There's 3 p.m. Pitzla service out in the parking lot. It was great on Rosh Hashanah. We did a drive-in service with the Pitzlas, with the little ones, and we had a lot of folks there, and that was really enjoyed. Just like our shofar blowing was on Rosh Hashanah afternoon in the parking lot. That was great. And then we have 4 o'clock starts afternoon services that roll right into Yisker services that roll right into concluding services. And in the afternoon services, we're going to be using more of this prayer book as than of our Gates of Repentance. And then we'll go back to Gates of Repentance for the memorial service. So believe it or not, that's our 15 minutes. And I don't know about you, but I want to go see BTS on Tiny Desk concerts now with NPR. I've been looking forward to it. I'm joking, but I do like the Tiny Desk concerts. Well, I wish you all a Shana Tova, a good and sweet New Year. Thank you for coming on to Monday Morning Musings. There will not be Monday Morning Musings next week. You can log on and find us in the sanctuary, Temple Shir Shalom, because next Monday is Yom Kippur. In 2 weeks, Sarah Allen from Repair the World, Detroit, the executive director, will be with me as my guest to talk about social justice and the good work that they're promoting and their vision for the future as well. Thank you very much, and